In this video, I'm gonna discuss about hyperbola and ellipse. So, for the first conic section that I'm going to discuss is hyperbola. So, let's talk about hyperbola. There's two equations that you need to be familiar with. X squared over a squared minus y squared over b squared, which is equals to 1. Notice that x squared has a positive sign in front of it, and y squared has a negative sign. When you see this, you're gonna get a graph that is gonna open to the left and to the right. So A is the distance between the center and the vertices. So A is associated with X, so it is horizontal. The x-axis in this case is the transverse axis. C is longer than A, so this is the focus of foci. So because C is longer than A, the equation is C squared equals A squared plus B squared, which is Pythagorean theorem formula. For the case of an ellipse, it is C squared equals A squared minus B squared. So that's the difference between the hyperbola and ellipse. Now, the other formula you have to be familiar with is y squared over a squared minus x squared over b squared, which is equal to 1. At this time, y is positive and x is negative. So the graph is gonna face upward and downward. So this is A and this is the C. So the transverse axis this time is the y-axis. Now, let's have an example on graphing hyperbolas. So a squared is the number under the positive term, which is 4. So a squared is equals to 4, which means a is equals to 2. And then b squared is the number under the negative term, which is a squared is equals to 16. So v is equals to 4. Notice that a is not always longer than b in the case of a hyperbola. But for ellipse, a is always larger than b. So the center is basically the origin, since there's no h or k value. So let's graph this. So let's graph this over here. Centers at 0 and the A is 2. Let's travel 2 units to the right and 2 units to the left. Since A is associated with X, it's gonna be left and right. And B is associated with Y, so it's gonna be 4 units upwards and downward. 4 units up and 4 units down. Next, let's draw a rectangle that accompanies the A and B values. Next, let's draw the asymptotes. The asymptotes pass through the two corners of the rectangles, and it has to pass through the center as well. So x is positive, then it's going to open to right and left. Sorry for my dropping sound. I'm so bad at it. So it's gonna look something like this and this. Now the only thing that we need to find are the coordinates of the foci and the vertices. So this is the point for the vertices. So we can see that the vertices are plus or minus 2, 0. Vertices equals to plus or minus 2, 0. The foci is c units away from the center. So let's find the c using the equation c squared equals a squared plus b squared. So therefore foci is c squared equals a squared plus b squared equals c squared equals So the foci is square root of 20 or plus or minus square root of plus or minus 2 square root of 5, 0. So that's it for this problem. So the next conic section that I'm going to discuss is ellipse. And the equation is just like the equation of hyperbola, but this time it is x squared over a squared plus y squared over b squared, which is equal to 1. A squared doesn't always have to be under x squared. It can be under y squared as well. And as I was saying earlier, a is not always larger than b in hyperbola. But for an ellipse, a is always larger than b. So, relative to the origin, the first vertex is a units away from the origin, and also the second vertex is a units away from the origin as well. To find the mine of vertices, we need to travel b units from the center, top, and bottom. Notice that in this equation, a is under the x variable, so a is associated with the x-axis, and b is under the y variable, so b is associated with y-axis. So to graph the ellipse, you just need to connect these 4 points together. Now, the foci are inside of the ellipse. The foci is always on the major axis of ellipse. So, if A is on the A-axis, if A is on the x-axis, x-axis, the foci will be also in x-axis. But if A is on the y-axis, the foci will also be in y-axis. So let's have an example. X squared over 9 plus y squared over 4 is equals to which is equals to 1. So a squared is equals to 9, which means a is equals to 3, and b squared is equals to 4, which means b is equals to 2. Now, the center of ellipse is at the origin since there is no h or k value. So now let's graph it. So a is with the x variable, so relative to the origin, we're going to travel 3 units to the right and 3 units to the left. So let's plot these 2 points in there. And then b is associated with the y variable, so let's go up 2 units up and 2 units down, and then let's grab it. The coordinates of the vertices are 3, 0, and the vertex is -3, 0. And then the coordinates of the foci is somewhere along the major axis. So first, let's find C. C squared is equals to a squared minus b squared equals a squared is equals to 9 minus b squared, which is 4. So C is equals to 5. C squared is equals to 5, which means C is the square root of 5, which means, yeah, C is the square root of 5. So the coordinates of the foci will be positive or negative square root of 5, 0. So that's it. Thank you for watching, ma'am.